I trust you. I do. And you can trust me. But what about trust in a group? Put it this way, I'm out here on a YouTube channel. If you've got any concerns about the kind of person I am, whether I'm reliable, what my values are, you can do that pretty easily. That's just the power of the internet here in 2024. But groups are harder. For instance, there might be a group of people you work with. There's not just one person in a group. There could be 5, there could be 50, there could be 500. And where it's easy enough to get a fix on my reliability and my values, the dynamics of those groups could be really complex. It could be really hard to work out, not the values of the individuals, although maybe that, but how they will interact and what will come from that. Think Lord of the Flies. Each of the kids involved might be lovely, but when we put them together, altogether less lovely. So, what size of group would you trust the most? Pause the video, put your answer in the comments, come back to it in the end. Happily, making sense of this kind of thing is exactly what we do here on Trust Me, I'm a Philosopher, where we delve into the study of trust, what it is, why it matters, how you can gain it, and how much that might be worth to you. Don't forget to stick around to the end if you're interested in how to apply this to your own situation. Now, it turns out that there's some really interesting work that's been done on trust in groups. Some of that research has concerned itself with the optimal group size for trust. Some of the results here are just brilliant. There's a lovely 2016 paper by Stephen Lamacchia, I think that's how you say his surname, and colleagues, and that explores group size and its connection to trust. They ran a bunch of different tests, and you should absolutely go and read the paper for yourselves if you're interested in this. I'll link to it down below, so to make that nice and easy for you. But what they found over and over is that when it comes to trust, we prefer smaller groups to larger groups. Within that paper, one study in particular I think was really fun. It's what they describe as their study number 4. They ask us to imagine that we're facing a disciplinary panel consisting of either 3 or 10 people, none of whom we know personally. The 3-person panel is then described as being the small group, and the 10-person panel the large group. They used this picture to help get people's imaginations going. What they found is that the panel of 3 was seen as warmer than the panel of 10, which, given some of the other things going on in the paper, meant that the smaller panel was trusted more. And that increase in trust was, in turn, associated with expecting the small panel to be more lenient and more fair. Now, also, really fascinatingly, the larger panel was actually seen as being more competent, but that didn't affect the perceptions of trustworthiness or the outcome expectations in this case. So crucially, perceptions that the larger panel was better, was more competent, did not mean that it was regarded as being more trustworthy. Now, there are lots of other scenarios and cases in the paper, but overall their results suggested that small equals trustworthy, and that heuristic emerges because small group sizes remind individuals of their own intimate groups, like family units, small groups of friends, things like that. And that in turn looks like it might be evoking perceptions of communal traits like warmth and accountability, which of course are really important for trust. Additionally, the preliminary findings that people perceive small groups as easier to influence than large group, aligning with social impact theory, might also explain why individuals expect more favourable outcomes in trust interactions with the smaller groups. They're just easier to work with. Now, there are all sorts of papers on this, but another lovely one from 2002 also found that trust in governing bodies correlates with the size of the group that's being governed. And again, small equals trustworthy, big much less so. Now, as I'm a group of 1, the smallest possible group, you should definitely then trust me and go ahead and like this video and subscribe to the channel. Makes a huge difference when you do. If all that research is correct, and if it holds more generally, then that suggests some really interesting takeaways for what we might have been thinking about how we organise our institutions and our workplaces. And so this is where we get into the how does this actually make a difference to the way that we live our lives? Going back to a write-up by Stephen Lamacchia, he notes a number of possible ways that we might look to improve trust. For example, we might explore companies increasing their brand trust by making themselves look smaller than their competitors. And in addition to that suggestion, we might think about how we organise our workplaces. After all, if smaller teams are easier to trust, shouldn't we be setting out to organise ourselves into a range of small teams rather than large sprawling teams that, given these findings, will not generate trust? Given what we know about the connection between trust and productivity, hint, more trust, more productivity, where you have the ability to do so, organising, or at least presenting your teams as small, looks like it could have a large payoff for you in terms of building trust in teams. In short, anything that you can do to present your team as evoking communal traits like warmth and accountability and looking small will be beneficial in increasing the way that the groups are trusted where you work and where you operate and live your lives. So, I hope you've enjoyed that little foray into some of the academic research into trust. If you have, give the channel a like and subscribe, and be sure to check out the links below for all the papers and other materials discussed in this video, as well as links to some of the things that I've written about the philosophy of trust. Until next time, stay suitably trusting.